welcome back to the Flat Pack. My name's Ross Brierley. We're here in the box in Leeds, as ever, every week almost, to look back and look forwards at the action from the flat season 2022. And it is an absolute delight to have you at home or on the bus, on the toilet. Who knows what you're doing right now whilst watching this intro, but whatever it is, I'm glad that you are here. Please do like and subscribe if you haven't already. Press that thumbs up button. It's down one of these sides, somewhere around here. And please do put your comments on the bottom as well, because it is very much appreciated. So without further ado, let us welcome back the monolith, the monster, the genius that is Matt Gardner. No, of course, Keith Melrose returns to the show this week. Mr. Melrose, welcome back.
Thank you, Ross. How are you?
I'm very well. You've been on holiday?
I have, and I looked at the results at York and I thought, thank God I missed that.
Yes, fair enough. You don't appear to have been... Graham Rodway, I worked with him last week. He's come back as a bronzed Adonis.
Has he?
You've come back as a slightly flushed Scotsman.
It's only one speed I've got, really.
Yeah. Did you enjoy your holiday?
I did, yeah. It was good to just get away for a little bit. And, you told me don't watch any racing. I did err a little bit. I watched the Nunthorpe.
Did you?
But that was it. I watched the Nunthorpe and that was your lot.
And did you get it right?
Cadden was fourth, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
We backed him each way, all of us, each way first three. And obviously the fate of all each way bets, as they say. That wasn't great.
Yeah, well, if it helps, I got 4 places in the morning. So this is my new role now as a guest. The moment's a losing bet, I tell them. It actually went all right for me.
Oh, was this the King of Stars one that Craig talked about last week? No, I was delighted that got beat because if that had popped up at 33s when I wasn't in the country, I'd have been livid.
Yeah, well, it almost popped up in the Beverley Bullet on Saturday, which we will discuss later on the show. Speaking of fast Yorkshire things, Matt Gardner.
I'm not sure I entirely agree with that, but yeah.
Yeah, are you okay?
I'm very well, thanks, yeah.
Yeah, sad news, you fell off your bike this week.
I did a little bit.
You did?
It was fine, it was a relatively soft landing, though, so.
It was? Was it onto someone's front lawn?
No, just a little bit of relatively cushioned grass.
Cushioned grass. Talk us through the experience. How did it, what happened? How did it come about?
No, I never hit someone actually, but you know when you clipped in and you just, yeah. And then you just hit the brakes and just a little toppled in and clipped fast enough.
Oh, right. You did the one of the, where you one of those?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
So it's very slow motion. It's quite embarrassing really, but.
Oh, okay. But here we are bringing it up.
Yep.
So, but it's all right though because you finished the paper round, right? And you still got your subs at the end. £7 a week, I believe.
Yep. Yeah. Increased for speed, decreased for. I don't know where I was going with that.
No,
Are paper rounds not gone up with inflation?
No.
You should have a union, shouldn't you?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to, if the energy bills are anything to go by, I think we're all going to have to take up paper rounds at this rate. But anyway, what have you been up to in the past week? And what have you learned? One lesson learned is how we start every episode of the Flat Pack. Matt has learned to unclip himself from the bike before putting the brakes on. Keith Melrose, you've been away for 2 weeks. Have you had time to muse and to become a better man?
Yeah, I tried to get away from racing and I found it's bloody difficult, to be honest. My book, when I was reading on holiday, was a book about Anglo-Saxon England, 10 chapters, and I thought, I'm on safe ground here, I'll avoid racing. One of the chapters was on St Wilfrid. I couldn't believe it. It's like in those Droopy cartoons, you know, when the wolf escapes to this log cabin in the country, just sees Droopy there.
Yeah.
It was horrible. But it wasn't horrible.
And was he great?
He was a bit of a swine, to be honest. He would basically, he would hop onto people, he'd be their friends, and then he'd cock it up, and then he was like the Mourinho of the 7th century. He'd be really popular for a bit, and then he'd make a hash of it, and he'd get moved on to somewhere else. And
then go and advertise watches or something.
Yeah, exactly. Do some Paddy Power adverts, something like that. So I did try that, but my actual lesson from the racing, I caught up a lot sort of the last couple of days, and I realised why it needs to be big handicaps that Great Ambassador runs in. Because if you give him any space, he'll bloody well run into it.
Yes.
Which is exactly what he did in the Newmarket race on Saturday. He's still a dead interesting horse. He's going to be one of these horses, isn't he? That you do get them, that they can run massive figures in handicaps, but they can't do it in group races. And sometimes there's an issue with maybe handicapping, which we've discussed before and bored everyone to tears with. But there's also sometimes these horses that just suit those big field scenarios. He needs to pick wheels all the way through the field and present himself late. He didn't get a chance to do that on Saturday, and it cost him that race.
He's the fiddler on the roof of the flat season, where you think, oh well, you know, running big field, strong pace. Oh, okay, too many runners. Let's run him in a 500. Oh, okay, no, okay. Maybe it's just going to happen every single time.
I think it is, and hopefully he's not got fiddler roof because he was a bit physical issues, wasn't he? I think Great Ambassador's absolutely sound, but you're going to end up backing him again for an Air Gold Cup, and he'll be unlucky again, wrong side or something, and that'll be it.
Yeah, okay. Matt Gardner, what did you learn this week?
So this is sort of the way that the flat season goes. So I think I got a bit lazy last week, to be honest. And you're coming down from York, which is obviously brilliant. You're looking at kind of Celebration Miles, the Thin Renewal, Beverley Bullet, and you think you almost got to retune yourself into that. And I sort of fell into the trap of thinking that Mutasabek, he'll probably win. Didn't really think too hard about it. Tis Marvellous, I went, well, he's not in the same form as he was last year. Probably, is he going to do it again? But actually, he was much more likely raced this year, Tis Marvellous. He'd run one of those disappointing runs of being in a Group 1, so you can sort of forgive that. And you kind of think they probably targeted him at it this year, whereas last year was maybe a bit of an afterthought after quite a heavy campaign.
Yeah, they were just on a run, weren't they?
Yeah, exactly. And the Celebration Mile, you had the opportunity to get 130 about an improving 4-year-old against a slightly iffy favourite. And it's almost just kind of reminding yourself to, even though they are slightly sort of down weeks, if you will, there's still bets to be had, there's still interest to be had. And you've just got to kind of kick yourself and make yourself do it rather than just think, that's probably going to happen. Whereas quite often it's just not the case.
With the Beverley Bullet as well, sometimes you get in a different mindset because it's one of the big races on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Whereas it's just a listed race.
Yeah.
It's just a listed sprint,
Exactly.
man.
It's not even that, really. I mean, it was last week. It was two listed horses and a handicap, wasn't it?
And a lot of handicappers, yeah, exactly.
But I think that, my lesson is almost the antithesis of yours. I think you've got two options. Either, you kick yourself and you do it, or you go, you know what? I put so much mental energy into York last week that I'm going to play this with such a straight bat. I'm going to tiptoe in. If something stands out, then it stands out. If it doesn't, I'm not going to go hunting for it. I think that's what I kind of learned last week, because I think, for example, the Beverley Bullet was a good example. That was one of the only races I looked at the weekend and I thought, well, he's just better than these, isn't he? And I kind of went through it and I thought, oh, well, no. And then I just couldn't find anything that could kind of match Tis Marvellous for speed figures and course form and all that kind of stuff. But there was...
Yeah, this is a bad habit.
Yeah, but I gave it all back on other races that I forced myself to try and find angles on that didn't work out. Whereas the only race where I thought, okay, that's fairly simple, on a quiet, simple week, was the only one that kind of paid off. And I gave it all back on overcomplicating things.
Maybe the lesson is don't fall between doing that and what I did.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
That's what I mean. Pick one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. If you've got either do it or don't do it.
Go do something else.
And listen to yourself and go, you know what? Do I really want to get stuck into this right now? And if you don't, have an ice cream.
It's nearly September, so the ice cream season's running out.
Well, I don't know. I mean, quite frankly, who knows what's happening?
Well, that's true,
we don't have seasons anymore, do we? So who knows? Might be having an ice cream at Christmas. Got some good comments last week. Some good comments from various people. 9PWSS Camel got in touch. He says the extended dry spell with consistent ground has resulted in decent horses performing with good consistency. It's been a golden spell for form students, I would say. This is something we've talked about off air almost, but we didn't actually put in the show, and that's because we were talking about last week how in-form horses are just repeating those runs over and over and over again. And that is definitely because they're running under identical conditions. And they have been for months and months and months.
Really unusual, isn't it?
Yeah,
for
totally.
Our sort of, in the UK, we don't get that. I'm really interested to look into that actually and see if that does actually bear out in terms of kind of horses running to form and that sort of thing.
How would you test it?
Probably have to limit it to a certain ability, but then look at kind of RPRs and all that sort of stuff, and expected versus how they perform. But it'd be interesting. I think it probably would, bear out for a good chunk of the summer. Yeah,
absolutely. But usually at this time when the ground starts to turn, it tends to be the part of the flat season where I would struggle a little bit more.
Yeah,
it's not come yet. It'll come. I'm sure I'm going to have a dreadful September or whatever whenever the rain does come. But no, I've learnt from you this year, and I'm going to try and
pivot.
talk about it in yearly cycles, and I'm going to try that method as I've discussed on the show before. But it's when the ground turns is when I start finding the flat very hard, because also you've had the summer where it's very hard work, 5 meetings a day, a lot of racing on, and then you've got to do it all again. You
try and completely switch.
You hope to coast home, and you can't coast home as soon as the ground goes.
Well, I think almost Matt's lesson was you can never ever coast home in this game ever. At all. There's always something will come back and bite you in the backside. Speaking of the ground, though, Canny LUFC, as you said a couple of weeks ago, mentioned a horse to follow if the ground turns really soft is Ainsdale. Julie Camacho's made a sound return in the Beverley Bullet and might well have one of those back-end sprints on his radar. I think that's a good point.
I wrote that bit.
What?
the comment was just a few weeks ago.
It says who dropped this comment on the... you wrote the second bit.
I wrote the second bit, yeah.
I thought, bloody hell, weeks in advance he predicted that horse running in the Beverley Bullet.
No, he did. He ran a pretty good race in that Beverley Bullet. I thought the inside, which we'll talk about in more depth later, but that's another horse where they've obviously just thought, we need to run him.
Yeah.
We're waiting for the soft ground. We need to get a run into him.
Yeah.
I thought, wow, that is
insightful from...
Get on the show, mate. Yeah. LUFC, can't be far away. Save 991 Inzaghi. I'll tell you what, some of these names. It says, sadly, to relate, my lesson learned this week is that these guys occasionally do talk a bit of sense.
Could have surprised me.
So there you go. Fresh Hope 710 the other night after running well at Royal Ascot, 6th in a handicap, wins the Tad Cosley for the second time. I assume that was Royal Ascot watch coming off the back of that. Alex Mansfield said the reason there was no draw bias was down to an excellent job by the clerk at the course at York. And unlike at the southern tracks with their indiscriminate watering because they're scared of good to firm summer ground for flat racing, that's what Alex Mansfield said. So he was very, very complimentary.
very much. It was like, this is Yorkshire people are sensible, isn't it? That
He was. I could almost feel that he capitalised flat racing. He went and he held down shift.
It was good. It was really, really good ground at York, wasn't it?
York do a cracking job, not only for actually producing a good surface, but for letting everybody know about it. And publishing data in advance, wind, watering, everything, rail movements. They're really good.
Yeah. And finally, John Jenkins, going in touch, says, lesson learned, don't let your prejudices get in the way of betting. Easier said than done, though. One of my biggest bugbears in racing, he says, see what I did there, bears. Lovely stuff, John. Is having geldings running in recognised classic trials. It shouldn't happen, in my opinion. I knew Dover Legend in the Great Voltage had the best form, but instantly dismissed him. Again, those little things in the back of your mind saying, we should change this. But you've got to approach it with the cold heart of a killer. Anyway, let's have a look back at last week's racing. Last week was a little bit quieter then with the post-York lull. We had a bit of action from Beverley, as we've already mentioned, from Goodwood, some cash on the table at Newmarket, of course, more Racing League action, some interesting Irish stuff as well. No real massive headlines necessarily, but I'm sure we can find some stuff to talk about, as all we do is waffle. There you go. There's your comment. Copy and paste that. Goodwood, of course, Celebration Mile, in theory, was the feature race of the weekend, but with only 5 runners and a very much below par favourite. It was a bit of a damp squib. However, with another couple of days at Goodwood over the weekend, William Buick taking on his glorious Goodwood form to the lower echelons of the flat season and smashing up races left, right and centre. Again, we talked last week, do we overcomplicate this game sometimes, spend ages going through the form, or do you just go, what's Buick riding at Goodwood, stick them all in a multi and go to the pub?
Yeah.
That's pretty much how it goes, isn't it?
Yeah.
He was just in the right place at the right time consistently again last week.
Absolutely riding out with skin. And I think obviously, one, he's really good all the time, but he must be seriously high on confidence right now because he's not only is he winning races, he's winning races with either decisive moves or just bossing them or whatever it is in sort of multiple different ways. He's just brilliant. He's brilliant at the moment. Yeah,
because it wasn't. This is the thing. He's not doing anything particularly spectacular or out of the ordinary. The Fairy Cross ride. It was there's no pace on here. You're on the favourite. Okay, well I'm just going to go and settle in front and kick on. And other races, he makes sure he's never on that rail at Goodwood. He's never on the rail. In the Celebration Mile, he kind of looked over at Jim Crowley and was like, what are you doing there, mate? And I know that the favourite ran a shocker because of various reasons, but you kind of knew as soon as they turned into the home straight, Buick's just going to kick on here and get this done.
He's just, I think that's one of the things that is setting him apart, is just being in the right place pretty consistently, isn't it? In terms of there's also a couple of rides where he's almost sort of filled the horse with that confidence, whether it's delaying his challenge slightly or just kind of going through horses. Just being in the right place is so key to winning a race, and he's just there 99% of the time at the moment. Yeah.
The race I've watched was the 5,000 to 1 race, which is another good example of that, where the horse was quite slowly away, and sometimes a jockey would panic, or Goodwood in a sprint there, and just think, oh, how am I going to get back into this? But there was no panic from Buick. The horse picked up really well to get him there, to be fair, but there was no element of rushing him because the horse is barely a sprinter anyway. And he knew he had to be patient, and it took. You have to be really confident to pull that off, I think.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that it is that confidence, and it's not a confidence. He's not pulling rabbits out of hats. He's seeing he's playing the percentage call every time, isn't he?
Absolutely. 5,000 to 1's another good example. He won that race because he was far too well handicapped.
Yeah,
and it was a jockey could have made a pig's ear of that, but Buick didn't.
Yeah,
he knew exactly what to do, and he had the confidence to carry it off. And just go out and do it.
Yeah. As for the Celebration Mile, again, 5 runners. I mean, the mile division is. What's the point to an extent? But
no, is Real World going to come back? And maybe is he going to be Celebration, the rightful king sort of thing that Celebration did when Frankel went up?
Finally get his day in the
which he should do. He's good. He's a good horse. I hope he does. But the second division. Races in a division tells you a lot about it, and the mile races are definitely doing that, aren't they?
Yeah. As for the rest of the weekend, Windsor again, nice Saturday night meeting, a couple of decent races there, and the feature races went to two very contrasting horses, an unexposed 3-year-old in the shape of Cresta, and a horse that seems to have been around since the dawn of time in the shape of Regal Reality. We'll start off with Cresta because he's been one of those horses. He was in Royal Ascot Watch, obviously. He was one of the key eye catchers from Royal Ascot Watch, almost too obvious. And Jamie Spencer's notoriously ridden him on his last couple of starts in that Spencer style. And Richard Kingscote got on board on Saturday night, and it couldn't have been a more different kind of ride, could it? I mean, it was the anti-Spencer.
Well, he is the anti-Spencer in a lot of ways, isn't he?
Yeah. Spencer is, I find him quite frustrating. He's really good if you're on one of his horses and he wins and it looks good and you really kind of get into it then. But a lot of the time I just sort of go, why?
It's why he remains so popular. He's been around 20 odd years and he's like Schrodinger's jockey, isn't he? Sometimes only Spencer will do.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's anyone but Spencer.
Yeah. Well, I think so I was looking into the stats again. Horses in class 1 or 2 races this year, ridden by Spencer on their last start, swap the jockey, you'd have had 7 wins from 35, 20% strike rate, £9 profit, 1.71 actual versus expected. But what I noticed is that if you repeat that since the start of 2022, there's a big change. Start of 2022, those stats are huge. It's 17 from 103, 27.75 profit, 1.47 actual versus expected. So maybe we're being a bit harsh. Maybe COVID has maybe Jamie Spencer's sitting at home thinking, there's more to life than this now after all these years, and because it's only those last 3 seasons that those numbers have switched. It used to be completely opposite.
Yeah. And you think he's got enough clout to not be. If he knows the horse has got it in it next time, he's got enough clout to not get jocked off. You'd have thought. He's a senior jockey now, but it seems to be happening.
Yeah, but Kingscote, booted Cresta home from a long way out. Grocer Jack was given a similar ride as well, but then was picked up by Regal Reality.
We watched that race just before earlier.
Just what it was.
And the movie made from, it's about 3 furlongs to 2, wasn't it?
Something like that. Yeah.
And everything went from on the bridle, he kicked on and he instantly got everything at it. Like, if that horse isn't capable of winning a good race, I don't know what.
Grocer Jack?
Yeah. I mean, you might tear all your hair out waiting for it, but he's definitely got a big one in him.
It's probably a comparison that will almost certainly flatter Grocer Jack, but I'm reminded a little bit of Gaiath when he was a younger horse.
Yeah.
And when they get a lid on him, he'll be a proper horse. And Grocer Jack's 5 now; they might run out of time, but he's got a lot of ability. If they can make him more tractable, I was saying to you, I wouldn't be amazed if he's a sort of horse that even pops up in a Coronation Cup or something.
Yeah.
Because he's got loads of ability. They just need to channel it.
Yeah. Yeah, because I thought it was an absolutely huge run. I mean, he should have won. I mean,
He was the best horse in that race by lengths.
How he stuck in there for as long as he did, I don't know. Yeah. After doing all that he did up until like the furlong pole, for him not to drop away says plenty.
And that's the second time in a row that he's done that.
Yeah.
And the time before that, he didn't do that because nobody hassled him, and he absolutely mullered them.
Exactly.
So there we go. So Grosser Jack could be one to follow over the next few weeks. As for Regal Reality, age is just a number and all that. Which is good for you.
Isn't it better for us?
Yeah, it probably is better for us. Yeah. We've got our best days ahead of us, Keith.
I don't know.
Next Thursday, I think it is.
What's happening then?
I don't know. It just feels like it's going to be a good one.
I've just got this feeling.
That's it. Then it's on the downslope from there on in. But Regal Reality, 7 years old. Tis Marvellous won the Beverly Bullet at 7 years old. Is there a thing? Again, we overplay the age thing to an extent, but it is also. Horses getting retired at 2 and 3. We are warped in the sense of how long horses can go on for at a decent level.
I think so, and it's also something to say for the level you're at as well. Beverly Bullet's a listed race. In handicaps, you would err towards the 3-year-olds because, yes, the 3-year-olds might not be as good as Tis Marvellous, but it's about what you've shown up to this point when it's handicapped. So it's a slightly different thing, but Tis Marvellous is trained by Clive Cox and Regal Reality, Michael Stout. These are
Sir Michael Stout.
I've always got this thing of knock. I'm disrespectful to the great knight who was knighted for his service to tourism in Barbados, I think. Anyway,
what have you done with your life?
I've not done as much for tourism in Barbados, I can tell you that personally. But if you let me come to Barbados people, I'll gladly accept the invite. But yes, so these are trainers that are extremely good with that sort of horse.
Yeah.
And Tis Marvellous is a horse that he ran the race of his life when he won the Beverly Bullet last year at 6. So it's not amazing to think he's still capable of winning listed races when he's 7. So you get some horses that wouldn't last that long. At the listed level, you're less likely to get the 3-year-olds coming through, although I think Mannequin, he was an upcoming sort that ran in the other listed race on the weekend, run a pretty good race.
And where he was beaten by a 3-year-old as well. So
yes, of course he was. Yeah, I forgot about Sam Maximus. It's at that level, it becomes a little bit about taking each case on its merits a little bit, but it's not to say that there's not clues there.
No, but I think that's the key thing, isn't it? It's almost like what John Jenkins said earlier. It's that taking that dismissive sense of you're like, oh well, he's too old now, and going, okay, let me just interrogate this. Is he run into the? Because I had both Regal Reality. I looked back, I backed Grosser Jack, and I went back and went, actually, we did a really good figure last time out, actually. And Tis Marvellous is, if you're running to the same level, then. The age is irrelevant, isn't it?
Yeah. Don't be so quick to write him off. Yeah, I also think there's a bit of some of these 3-year-olds, we kind of get interested in them because they are 3-year-olds. Whereas actually, those sort of lesser pattern races, they're not, the 3-year-old handicap program's so strong that that's kind of where the good ones go. And then they graduate into sort of group 2s, group 1s, that sort of thing. Whereas it's almost tempting for connections to have a go with a less 3-year-old because the prize money on offer and avoid those really strong 3-year-old only races.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're right because the 30-year-old, the 20 run of 3-year-old sprint handicaps.
Yeah. Why would you take one of them on?
You'd have to run better in that than you would to win a listed race around Windsor.
Harry 3, one of them at York, and running the Sprint Cup on Saturday.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're old enough. You can still be good enough, Keith.
That's very heartening to hear.
Yeah, it is indeed. Let's drop back to the juveniles, though, with Matt Gardner's Juvenile Watch, which is again, producer Dan, I'm sure, can... Well, he's got enough to do, to be fair. He's got enough to do. We had a nice little touch with Amici.
Yeah, both big fans, weren't we? Really like him, actually. These sales races are kind of funny. Like you're always limited a little bit. There's something that finishes about 5th or 6th that you don't want to go too high on when you're handicapping them. But Amici's definitely he's going to be a pattern level horse before long. Physically as well, he looks like the sort of horse that's going to develop into a 3-year-old.
I think he was remarkable. I mean, again, the one thing I was worried about was taking a 10-runner novice at Kempton where you were towed into it by 2 horses in front of you and you kind of swept down the outside in Kempton fashion, to then go into Newmarket and having a huge field, turf, undulating track, fast ground. There's a lot going on there. He looked a true professional.
And he should have won by further as well, didn't it? A furlong out, he looked like he would have won by further. And then he sort of got closed down by there was that Eddie's boy that was on the rail and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, really promising, I think, Amici for sure.
That was Matt saying, I wish he'd won by further.
Yeah.
Because I had to get creative with my pounds per length measure there to get him on the figure I wanted.
Yeah. But anything else on the 2-year-olds bandwagon?
Yeah, a couple Cairo over in Ireland. That looks a strong, that's a race to follow. The second was a 1.1 million guineas by stablemate. The third was a Lions horse. Cairo, I thought, won despite the trip. I think he probably don't want a mile at this point. He's not that stoutly bred. Classic for your Goodwood watch. He was second to the Foxes in a Goodwood novice, and at the time we sort of said those two are kind of more superior to the field than they were able to show. It was a really messy race.
Yeah.
He came out and won in a pretty good time, I thought, at Newmarket.
And he enjoyed it. And what I thought the difference there was at Newbury, he kind of got stuck in behind horses. At Goodwood, there was a bit of criticism for Pat Dobbs, I think, for kind of, what are you doing, mate? Kick him on. And that's what happened at Newmarket. He went, we've got the best horse.
He hit the line really strong as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
And we should mention Bright Diamond from behind Ferry Cross.
That's the 2-year-old for the weekend for me to take out.
Yeah, did loads wrong, didn't she? Again, missed the start, and I don't know, they didn't really get after her in the same way they did at Newmarket, and she probably wants a mile as well. But she's definitely a horse that is, I think, for next year as well. You know, maybe even further than a mile, but she's really promising.
Yeah. Again, but that was another. It was always on the wrong. You were on the wrong end of a Buick ride there. And it's not a criticism of Clifford Lee, but Clifford Lee at York is Buick at Goodwood, and then you take Clifford Lee to Goodwood, and he's like, you can see he's trying to figure the track out a little bit. And yeah, she was a little bit sluggish out of the box. It's only a second start, and it was. I'm not saying there wasn't panic there, but there wasn't that. Okay, well, I know exactly what I'm doing here. It was, okay, he's right. I'm just going to have to pick up the pieces here. So if you're going to follow any of them, all of them.
I like Amici and I like Classic. I think, and the Foxes obviously from Goodwood, who hasn't run since yet. That form worked out well because I think another winner has come out of it up at Carlisle, and another couple further back ran to a sort of similar level. So that's looking a strong race for sure.
Okay, and Cairo, you think might need a Nile?
We'll get through one of these shows without one of these, won't we?
We need some sort of poor sound effect for that now, don't we?
Can we get a sad trombone?
Look, let's show more a pyramid scheme. George Bowie was in fantastic form again last week. And this is going to be a resounding thing, I think, of every time I'm on a show. We just keep saying he's the best trainer in the country. He's the best trainer in the country because he keeps doing it. £2.5 million passing domestic prize money last week. This year he's made 1.4 million domestically from 460 runners. He made 932 grand last year for 475. Doesn't matter about the jockey, doesn't matter about the track, doesn't matter about the age, the sex, handicaps, novice events, group races. I mean, yeah, he's getting good stock, but there are a lot of trainers that get good stock and are doing nothing like this, man.
Or are very limited in what they can do it over. You know, they only do it with older horses.
And they get good sprinters,
Exactly, yeah.
I also like that he fires them all over the country as well. He's not afraid to do that. Whereas, you know, you get some yards that are sort of a little bit more limited in where they go, but you see he's all over the spot.
It might be who's doing his race planning, because it's an underrated aspect of training is how you place your horses. It's a skill set that not an awful lot of trainers have at that sort of level, but he might have. So you might find he's got somebody really switched on doing his race planning.
Yeah, it's probably a good partnership, isn't it? Yeah, whoever it is, it's kind of like, right, here's what we're going to go for, and you're great. I'll go away and get them primed and ready, and we know what we're going for. You wanted to mention another informed trainer.
Yeah, we've got one for the flat cap pack, haven't we? These Yorkshire, these up and coming Yorkshire trainers. James Horton, who, look, the background he's got, former assistant to Stouty, Sir Michael Stout. And
Stouty to you.
Sir Stouty to you.
Yeah.
And they're basically a retained trainer by the Dances, I think. But he, you and I could train a few winners doing that way, but he's got a 19% strike rate in his first season. Just massively positive. Sam Maximus won that listed race. A little bit fortunate because of what happened to Great Ambassador, but that's a horse that just keeps improving. I thought he wanted 7, he didn't. He's got a really forward pedigree. I wonder if he'd go on this year. I think he's actually done well to keep him at the level he showed and a bit higher than he was at 2. He's just a trainer that's going to be one to watch out for, and you'll be the next Yorkshire one, I think. Yeah,
I mean, we're going to have Yorkshire Sprint Watch, I think, which we'll come to for Haydock, I think, in a second. But he's making a name for himself.
Yeah, and he put something out on Twitter the other day. It was just the horses galloping. He was sort of doing a voiceover about sort of their fitness levels, where they might look to run, all that sort of stuff. Really, really good to see kind of that. up-and-coming trainer engaging in that sort of way. It's not something we've seen necessarily historically.
Yeah.
And there's a few others doing it. Dan Skelton did it over the jumps through the winter as well. More of that. It's really good.
Yeah, because I don't know about you, but I think this internet thing
Could go somewhere, couldn't it?
I think it's gonna revolutionise the world.
I might invest in it.
Yeah.
Yes. Could you buy stock on the internet?
You could probably buy a few gigabits. Yeah, something like that, I don't know. Maybe buy a server stack. I don't know. Yeah. Hello, Bill Gates. I'd like to buy some of the internet, please.
What do you mean you're retired now?
Yeah, that's it. Sorry, I'm trying to cure malaria. Oh, very well. So there we go. So keep it up, trainers, and come down to Leeds as well if you're. You can get James Horton in here.
Ooh.
Yeah. Getting down Bandioka. You probably can't see the sign, but James, if you're watching, come down to the box Tuesday mornings at Leeds. We'll buy you a coffee. Checking in on this week's hot list then, with the races throwing up winners, including Miss Attitude's 5 furlong 2-year-old novice at Sandown, which has worked out surprisingly well. The winner won at a big price for the Shannon team, has gone in again since, and then finished place in a red-hot race. We've also had Bonnie Angel come out of that race, and Bailey Gate just get beaten in a nursery next time out. So it's working out well, and a couple of horses this week out of that contest who potentially go to post are Fierce for the Moore team, who's entered at Lingfield. Bailey Gate potentially goes to Kempton to try and break the novice there. And there's also 8 Mile in a nursery at Kempton as well. So keep an eye out for those. 2 other races, starting off with Temper Trap, who's been rattling in wins left, right and centre for the Easterby team. And the one at Leicester in particular is working out well, with Temper Trap going in again next time. And Astral Bow winning a nice race at Newmarket. Starshield was beaten on the line at Redcar the other day. That looks red hot form. Now, there are no horses entered this week, but it's such good form, it had to go on the hot list. And finally, So Grateful, the Easterbys are not only Tim but Mick as well, throwing in winners with David as well. So Grateful won at Southall, dropped back to 5, won next time out, and Badgery bolted up in a Racing League handicap last week as well. Kentucky Rose goes to Hamilton, and Dark Shot potentially goes to Windsor for the Racing League, and that track could really suit. So there are your 3 hot list races. Fingers crossed we get some hot winners. This week's action then comes from Ascot, Kempton, and of course Haydock at the weekend, and we should get a nice run into it as well, with a couple of days beforehand to get used to the track at Haydock. Always quite nice, that, isn't it, for a big Saturday meeting to have a few prep runs the couple of days before, of course, before they completely bamboozle you and go to a different part of the course altogether. But we've known that already. If you've watched the Flat Pack all summer, we are here to guide you through that pain and misery, hopefully with a winner or two. But in theory, the Sprint Cup could be an interesting one. It is kind of tipping over into the autumn season. Of course, we have had some Sprint Cups running terrible ground. Reverence, I salute you, back in the day. Unlikely to be the case this weekend, though, gents, which means, in theory, your Ascots and your Newmarket form and your York form should be not only tested, but also kind of, in theory, we should get all that form consolidated at Haydock.
Yeah, and but sometimes at this point the ground's flipped, so you're looking at totally different form. But the anti-post markets will always reflect the form that's gone by most recently. That's just the nature of the game. Yeah, and you're expecting it to bear out a little bit more this time because it's not deep mud. We're not. I remember reporting on it as a news reporter in one year and getting soaked. I think that was when Harry 3 won it or something, or Great Quiet Reflection. It can be grim on that day. You get really deep ground. But it's not going to be like that this year. So you're sort of expecting that form we've seen in recent sprints to carry through a little bit. And
you've been the sprint king for this season, Keith Melrose.
Sprint Duke, maybe.
The Sprint Duke, yeah. The Grand Old Duke.
The Grand Old Duke of sprints. And so we've got Menzel here, who's favourite on the power of what he did behind Highfield Princess. Yeah. He said after the Morris the Guest that he might have won that race with a clearer run potentially. Maybe subsequent evidence suggests not. But he's up there. Emiratiana has been running himself back to form. It's almost like the horse has been training himself to come back to Haydock, because I'm pretty sure connections were there to win everything he's been in before, but he's just coming back.
He's like, I'm not good in the sun. I can't do it.
I'll wait for Haydock when it's a little bit. Yeah, he's 7-1 now, isn't he? And that's I'm feeling that's short enough. The one, and then you put on the running notes before it, Art Power, how well he'd shaped at York, and I was like that. That Gene Wilder Charlie and Chocolate Factory meme where he goes, "Oh, tell me more about how Art Powers drew a big one," because I stepped on that rake myself umpteen times.
Yeah.
But then I watched the York Stakes back yesterday, and dear me, does he shape well.
Yeah. He just goes, I mean, bearing in mind you had Pogo in there as well, who just, given his name, bounces off in front. And Art Power, mate, I'm a sprinter.
Yeah,
I'm going hell for leather
I'm
here.
much faster than you.
And he kept going.
I couldn't believe how long he lasted.
Yeah.
That is the one performance out of York with that's really stuck with me. I just watched it. I can't believe he shaped brilliantly.
Yeah.
So
you wake up in the dead of night.
Yep. Yeah.
What is it, Matt? I just can't believe how well Art Power. Not again.
Matt, come on, we're out for a nice, lovely dinner. I know, but you need to watch the replay back.
Matt, don't you remember when you backed him to beat Batash and Unthorpe? I know, but it'll be different this time.
Crying for days afterwards.
Please give me one more chance. I promise it didn't mean anything that day.
Remember that time he was in a group of 2 in the July Cup and finished 4th? Oh yeah, I know, but it'll be different this time.
It'll be different this time. So Art Power, you're renewing your vows.
Yeah, I can't not. You got to roll those dice again, don't you? And like, he's still. I didn't. It feels like he's run a lot. Taking all that into account, you feel like there's a lot of scars. But actually, I think he's had 16 starts, which isn't that many for a 5-year-old. And
he came into that Holyrood Housey one he won on his ear with about 4 runs behind.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden,
He'd
was
win like a
second favourite
novice,
in
and
the
then he'd win a novice at Newcastle, and then maybe a handicap at Newcastle, and then turned up at Ascot.
blew them away, 4 lengths in a 5 dead competitive 5 furlong 3-year-old handicap. But yeah, and ever since then he's been, when's it going to be his turn? And he has done me in a little bit, but that York form, the strength of that York run is going to be enough, I think.
We've knocked Spencer. We might as well knock D'Souza. I forgot how to pronounce his name. Let's call him SDS because my brain's apparently malfunction. The anti-Spencer, as it were.
Well, yeah, that's saying something. I mean,
sometimes overdid it from the front. But David Allen was on the other day on Art Power, and that's the thing. It's like David Allen's 2 from 3 on him. The other time was the other day, and I just wonder whether a slightly less
full ride.
Yeah,
because D'Souza. I mean, at one point he was as good as you got in this country, D'Souza.
Yeah.
But I think he took it a bit. This has been successful this way of riding horses, and there was nothing he wouldn't light up towards the end of this time. Art Power's going to benefit maybe from just getting held up in behind horses. He wants a bit of cover, I think. He doesn't want to get blasted off, getting exposed like that. So Alan will be better at that, hopefully. And he's double figures as we record. So he's the one I'm looking at.
I think in my head, partly I also conflate him. It's like Art Power and Winter Power. I've run hundreds of times, and then I go, oh no, wait, they're 2 different horses.
They're entirely different horses.
You've got to separate those mental scars, though, don't you?
Art Power never. Had he run well at York before last time at all? Because Winter Power's only run well at York.
Yeah. I think he went really freely once. With under D'Souza.
He went loopy in that. Was it the first time he was in Nunthorpe?
I think so.
He just went taunting in that race.
Yeah.
So Emiratiana. I think Emiratiana was the big one. You talk about recent form being the biggest indicator, and I think that it's just a perfect prep.
Well, that's the thing about Art Power as well. He's come in. Like they've saved him for the ground turning in the autumn, and it's not happened yet. So watch him win the Ben Goff Stakes instead.
Or that Curragh race that he won last year.
Yes, and he won that by 5. That was a massive performance. He's got it in him when it goes right. God, we're doing it again.
We're doing it again. This is it now, isn't it? Yeah.
It's painful, especially with sprinters.
We'll just be sat here next week.
At least it's over quickly with sprinters.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. But it's I think. You're having similar feelings to Art Power as I'm having with Great Ambassador of just like, I guess I've just bought a season ticket.
Got to ride the train.
I'm going to end up, I'm going to do the same with him in the Ergo Cup, exactly the same.
Yeah, although I do realise the other good sprint at Haydock at the weekend is a decent handicap. And wash your keyboard out, young man.
I've done it again. He always shapes well.
Shaped well, extremely well at Beverley. Did he shape well?
Well, he went off joint fab.
See, I'm not having this because people shape well. He caught the eye, and I'm like, you know what catches the eye? A man running down the street wearing nothing but a hat. But I'm not thinking I want to follow that.
I mean, I'm surprised at how high his mark is. To be honest, a little bit. He's 104, but he just got no run at all. That was a really interesting race, the Beverley Bullet, because yes, King of Stars went far too hard, but it wasn't enough to know that was the case. You had to follow him.
Yeah.
Like,
and the two,
like Arecibo did, like Tis Marvellous did.
yeah.
And
it was a proper Red Arrows kind of thing, wasn't it?
And Ainsdale, who went up the inside, he shaped pretty well because he was too far off and finished quite strongly. And I thought that Corker was another one who did that. He was, he finished about 8th, but he got chopped up about 3 times.
Yeah.
The mark is a bit higher than I thought. So he was there to illustrate the strength of the race as much as anything. Celsius is the one that you might actually be a little bit more interested in. He might go under the radar. He ran last time, I think, at Goodwood and had an irregular heartbeat. It said, I thought, he bounced a little bit there at the time. Reported he had an irregular heartbeat. He's 3 from 4 at Haydock. The only other time he completely blew up. And he can be prone to a bad run like that, but he's got that really good course record. He came in off the back of 2 wins to the Goodwood race, so
that's my only concern with him. He feels a bit like
it's a bit all or nothing.
I'm in great form, and then something happens, and he's like, I've had enough. Actually, that's me done.
He might be that sort of horse. I've only known him really this year for reasons that are obvious, but he just caught my eye as somebody. I'm not backing him each way. I'm backing him one only.
Yeah.
But he's a sort of horse that might, in a race where there's corkers left, right, and centre. Really sexier horses that you think are more interesting. Celsius is a type that might sneak in without so much fanfare.
Okay.
He's got really solid course credentials. He is still improving on quite recent evidence, and I thought he was one that caught the eye a little bit.
Okay, lovely stuff. That's Haydock. The only I don't want to get too much into it, but Contact, going back to Haydock, I thought was very interesting, potentially for the old Borough Cup. Speaking of course form, but let's have a look at Ascot and Kempton before we get too deep into Haydock, because it's one of those. Haydock is the feature. It's strange. Last week you kind of get, what is the feature? This week you think cracking Ascot card. Kempton, we've got a great Kempton card as well. Does seem a bit, as ever with the flat season, it's feast or famine to an extent, but Ascot's got some really good handicaps, really good 7 furlong handicap in particular. But the Lavazza Stakes is the one that you've made a little note on here. You've gone. This is lovely, Matt. This is beautifully set out and structured. You've put some real time and thought into this.
Yeah, it's a race I really like. I used to handicap the middle distance horses, and this was one of the races where this time of year you almost get a bit blasé about the sort of 3-year-old handicaps where we just kind of got used to them being really good. But this one is always really good.
Yeah. There's this one and there's one at Newmarket, isn't there?
Yeah, the TV Trophy or something it's called. Betfair used to sponsor it, but everybody knows that's really good form. Whereas this one, it's a little
under the radar a bit.
£100 race. I didn't realise until I looked this morning. You don't think of it as being a race of that value, but when we know about the race at Newmarket, but this is another one that's just as strong, but fewer people spot it.
Yeah.
That race at Newmarket always fills. It's always a max field, isn't it?
It usually is. Yeah.
And this one's got. Well, it never fills, by the looks of things.
There's been a couple of bigger field renewals, but there are some that tend to be on the smaller side. But it has thrown up really good horses. Camliford last year, I think he got disqualified, but he finished second in it. It threw up the year before, it threw up a couple of subsequent listed winners. Year before that, First 11 won it, who won the fast track at Ebor qualifier at the Dante meeting the following year. So, I had a quick look through earlier in terms of there's just loads that are interesting.
That's the only problem. There's some races this time of the week you can preview, and there's some races where you're like, oh great, I'm back in 10 then.
There's definitely, you need to wait and see what's declared, and you think, back 5.
Because I think there was a commenter, I can't remember his name, apologies, a few weeks ago said if Solcombe goes for the Lavazza Stakes, it'd be a certainty, and he is entered this weekend, but he's entered in the handicap at Haydock instead. Because I was like, right, yeah, perfect, fantastic. The way he finishes, he'll absolutely rattle up the hill again. But he's not in the bloody race.
Yeah. It might be that elsewhere might just suit him a little better. You made that point earlier. But it's just a race. Even if you don't get heavily involved pre-race, it's a race to note afterwards and just follow the form from, because we've seen from Goodwood and Ascot and stuff. This is going to be one of those races that works out.
Yes, it's a point I often make. When we make on this show, but you don't get to make in a lot of other places. Sometimes it might not be the best betting race in the world because it's just too competitive. But I tell you what I will be doing. I'll be watching this and I'll be making notes.
Backing about 8 of them next time.
Well, exactly. They're probably all running that Newmarket race.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, put a big flag on it for next time out. And Kempton as well. I was going through the cars. I started to get excited about it. I like this Kempton because I'm a bit of an all-weather aficionado anyway over the years, and to everyone else's discuss.
But you're going to be, because you'd bet in running a lot of the time, and you get to the big thing about in running punting is getting to know these tracks, and the ones you get to know the best That'll be a weather track because they meet every other day.
Yeah, and speed figure wise as well. It's just it's so much easier to go.
You can't muck about with the rails when it's grass.
Yeah. And go, oh, well, let's have a look at the figures. Right, that's what they've done at Wolverhampton. Great. I don't need to check the ground. I don't need to check whether it was an inside or outside track, where's the rail alignment, all that kind of stuff. So, but we've got some good races at Kempton. We've got the London Mile final as well at the September Stakes. I'll come to you for the Serenia Stakes first, which was also an interesting 2-year-old race at the weekend. And 2 horses caught my eye. One was Never Just a Dream, who did everything wrong at Wolverhampton and kept on going, and obviously York was a bit much for him. But the main one for me was Mischief Magic. I don't know how you've rated Mischief Magic, but that first novice win off the back of that debut was pretty eye-popping, I thought.
That good one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's worked out really well as well.
Even Chartwell House won yesterday, which is the one that I backed in that race and thought, this horse is a loon.
Yeah, he was impressive at Newmarket since. So last 10 years, somewhere between 101 and 110 has been what's been needed to win the Sarenia. It's been quite weak the last 3 years. He's 103 and he's probably the only horse that has any real hope here of getting there kind of imminently at the top end of that scale. The rest of them are sort of mid to high 90s horses, so he really does stand out. I think Never Just a Dream, New Definition, and maybe Kaima, the York Nursery winner, dropping back in trip, I think that could really suit him actually. But yeah, the Godolphin horse is the one that does stick out in this for sure.
I thought he might be one of those ones where you actually look at a Godolphin favourite who's priced up maybe sort of 7 or 4, 15 to 8 and think, actually, yes, this one
should be shorter.
Probably. I don't really say, it's a Godolphin hot pot, got about miles, and they just default put it in at 13.8, and then sometimes it's bad value, and sometimes it might be.
So this normally I really want to take him on, but this time I might actually get to take advantage of people like me being suddenly going, it's another Appleby horse. Elsewhere at Kempton, the London Mile final, I thought was quite interesting. Cabinet Maker caught my eye for those. See, I don't know how much of this, because sometimes, you're doing the sprinters, you're doing the 2-year-olds. I mentioned a Mark Johnson 3-year-old mile handicapper who snuck up the inside rail at Kempton last time out.
Right. Yeah, I don't know the horse that well, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So you crack on though.
Okay, fair enough. 3 from his last 4. The only defeat came at Wolverhampton, where everything was off the front, and he was I think he was even money favourite and was held up 5th and 6th and never got into it. But he came from God knows where last time out. You're nodding as if you do know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I did see the race. Yeah, I think he progressed from quite a low base in handicaps, didn't he? So he's definitely one that's firmly up. He did show well. Yeah, you're right. I think that Kempton could suit him actually as well.
He wouldn't. Yeah, he comes in, of course, in distance win, where he got a dream run down the rail, admittedly, but the way that he picks up, I think, is impressive. And Mostadaf, I'm excited about Mostadaf this weekend.
Okay.
So again, okay, fair enough.
Been on holiday for 2 weeks. Was he expecting it?
Yeah. Somebody's got to do the job, yeah. But yeah, Mostadaf's one of the. He might people again might put him in a Mutasabek kind of mould of, this is another Shadwell horse that gets sent off too short and this, that, and the other. And you might look at the.
That's exactly what I thought when you mentioned him.
Yeah, exactly.
This is one of these shadow horses is going to get sent off too short.
But you know what? He's an all-weather horse.
Okay.
That's why he keeps getting beat elsewhere. He is an all-weather horse. He's 2 from 2 on the all-weather. He's related to Nazif, who's 2 from the 2 on the all-weather. Musa Harbour, whose top 2 RPRs were at Newcastle. The Dam's got plenty of all-weather form in there as well. And it's his win. He beat Imperial Sands and El Drama last year in a novice, which was the one where everyone thought, wow, okay. We've genuinely got a listed or group horse on our hands. That was at Kempton. I'm hoping that the bias against him will be turned around. You're not convinced? Or you don't care?
No, I'm a little worried. Just his temperament's a bit iffy, but
he's allergic to grass.
Really bad hay fever.
It's unfortunate. It's so unfortunate.
It is.
What does he eat? They go to the field. None for me, lads.
Sandwiches. My dad used to be a member of a golf club where the greenkeeper had to be signed off because he was allergic to grass.
He can't do any of the all-weather golf courses, can he? He's now tending the fairway at a driving range.
He just did the bunkers. That was
it. I'm now a bunker raker.
Yeah. Oh, less of a greenkeeper, more of a bunker maintainer. Which I feel like we are. right now in here. But that's pretty much this week. Anything else to add for looking ahead?
No, I had a little rant lined up about the night racing finishing.
You can have a rant. Let's time it.
Okay.
You've got 30 seconds to rant about the night racing.
When they launched the changed the night racing things around, I was told the Friday of Sprint Cup week was the last time they could run turf night racing, and they've moved the goalposts with twilight meetings and whatnot. And we've got a couple of actual night meetings on the turf next week. I remember when I was a cashier at Hills as a student, we used to celebrate the end of night racing because the shops would start shutting at 6:30.
Yeah.
The shops, but now it just seems to meld all the way through. But it's still a big psychological thing to get the turf night meetings out of the way. Anybody who works in racing, July and August is hard work, and then we can start taking a breather after but the way it works now doesn't. What do you think? Does it not matter at all now, or does getting turf night racing out the road still represent a bit of a psychological hump?
I think it does. Yeah, for me, it's like, yeah, no, I think it still does. It's not quite. Yeah, it doesn't have that clean line. But thank God, I'm not going to go back and go. When did this run? Goodwood, Friday, 8:50. Oh right, okay. I guess I have to watch that back. So you've at least got one meeting at a push. So and there's probably there's less 2-year-old novices at God knows where.
Yeah. I get a lot of nice nursery scene, but I think I'm relieved briefly now when it finishes, and then I just get into that all weather night meeting stuff when it's this sort of just gets...
That's your winter then.
Exactly.
This is now me until April.
That's it now.
Okay, let us know what you're backing, opposing, doing with your life in the comments below, and fingers crossed you have a profitable weekend as well. The one to back for you, if there was one.
Art Power, I think, is the one so far in the big race. I've not. There's obviously not many markets going, but he's the one that. Come on, you'll get one more chance.
Yeah. Okay, Matt.
Art Power, and when he gets beat, I'll bail myself out with that Godolphin 2-year-old at Kempton.
When Art Power gets beat, I'll no doubt excuse him and then back him again when he runs at the Curragh.
Yeah.
And again. Okay, I'm going to go for the Triple M, the Mossadath Mischief Magic. Wow. Is what I'm going for. Is what I'll say when they win.